Hi, this is Lisagood, Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Today I'm going to show you a process video. The two cards are using By the Bay suite from the Spring Mini Catalog. And these are going to be heartfelt bird cards that I make for you. And I want you to see my process. And so I'm going to be showing pretty much everything I did to figure out what I wanted to do, how I was going to design the card, and then what techniques I used to do it. And then I made a second card that was almost the same, but a little different. Now, before we get started, I also want to talk just briefly about the Sale-a-bration promotion that is going on between now and February 28th. During Sale-a-bration, you can earn free stamp sets or pattern papers. You can get a level 1 item with every $50 that you purchase, or get a level 2 item with any $100 that you purchase. And there's also a special going on if you'd like to join and become a demonstrator, whether you want to sell any products to other people or not. So right now it only costs $99 to join, but you are going to get to choose $175 worth of stuff, anything that you want in your starter kit. And then there's two other options where instead of paying $99, you'll pay $129, but then you get an amazing product, and that's the mini stamp and cut and emboss machine. And you can get it in either white or in a new in color coming out this summer called Boho Blue. I'm guessing that's the best deal of the year. So if you spend about $80 or so on the average each month getting stamping stuff, you really should join to get the discount. And with me, there's certainly no pressure to have to sell to other people because I've been a demonstrator for a year and I've just been doing it for myself. We call that hobby demonstrator. I'm just now deciding that, maybe I'll try to do some videos. So I also want to let you know that I have a supply list of everything that I used or talked about down in the description below this video. And if you want closed captioning, if it doesn't come up automatically, you can hit the little square with the CC in it at the bottom of the screen. And if you think you might be interested in purchasing some supplies, then you will definitely want to notice the host code that is up in the left-hand corner of the video during the demonstration. So the way the host code works is if you want to shop with me, then you would use that code, and then you'll get rewards for using it. The way it works is if you put in an order of $25 or more, for every $25 you spend with me, then I'm going to send you a free handmade card. Probably something like is in this video or something similar, always using Stampin' Up! Products. And I will also enter your name into a giveaway for free Stampin' Up! Products. It's nice this way because you don't have to host your own party, and you don't have to get orders from other people, but you can still earn some free stuff. Now, on the other hand, if you do want to get orders from your friends or family, then go ahead and talk to me and I will give you a personalized host code just for yourself. So then if you end up with orders totaling more than $150, then you would get all the hostess rewards and free stuff that comes with that. So let's get started making our cute heartfelt bird cards. First, I'm going to take a pre-cut piece of Coastal Cabana cardstock, and that's just a half sheet so that I could fold it into a card if I wanted. But now I'm going to cut it down to a piece that is 5 1/4 by 4 inches so that I can layer that on top of a white piece of basic white thick cardstock, which that will be 8 1/2 inches by 5 1/2 inches, and that will be folded in half, and that'll be the card base. Next, I'm going to use some By the Bay Specialty Designer Series paper. And so I want to show that to you first. And so you can see as I am showing these to you that some sides of the paper have an iridescent pearl texture. That one has some gold foil on it. There's some other pages that have watercolor look to them, and right there I'm showing you where I had used the die cuts to cut out the pattern paper that have crabs and birds. And you can also use the rest of that pattern paper for other projects if you would like. And you can just see as I go through it, the nice variety of colors and textures that you get with this paper set. And the colors that are in this set are Petal Pink, Coastal Cabana, Balmy Blue, Night of Navy, Gold, and Pearl. This set of designer series paper is a part of our spring mini catalog that is available from now until, what's the date? April, through April 2023. This is actually a retired set that was from Sale-a-bration last year that has gold foil or silver foil. And so I used this as a part of the stripe down here. I use that on here. Getting back to today's project, I'm getting out some of that white with gold foil designer series paper from last year's Sale-a-bration reward set, and I have pre-cut pieces that are 5 1/4 by either 2 inches or 1 inches. But right now I'm going to shorten those down a little bit because I'm going to have them be at 5 inches because I'm going to layer them on top of some Coastal Cabana. And you can see I'm doing the same thing for the designer series paper that I'm using that's by the bay. So here's my white card base that's 8 1/2 inches by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm going to fold that in half, and I'm going to use my Take a Pick tool to make the fold nice and sharp. And I'm also going to show you that you can also do that with a clear block to make it nice and crisp. Now I'm going to take the Coastal Cabana cardstock that is 5 1/4 inches by 4 inches, and now I'm going to layer on those other pattern pieces that I just told you about. I have found that when I am putting pieces of pattern paper side by side, sometimes they want to overlap, or when I'm gluing them, it's hard to get them to be touching, and so I use a little bit of clear tape to tape those together, not to tape them onto the other cardstock, but just to tape them together. And then if they don't line up perfectly, then I can trim them so that they will be the same when I glue them onto the Coastal Cabana cardstock. And I have to say that the paper snips that I am using, the paper snip scissors, these are actually ones that I've had for probably 15 years, and they work so good. They have lasted, stayed really sharp. I've only noticed recently that they're starting to get dull, but it's actually because when I was not stamping, I was using them for lots of things that I should not have used them for. Really, you should only use them for like paper or cutting ribbon. You shouldn't be using them for cutting thicker things, and I was starting to do that, so I definitely abuse them, but they last forever, so I would definitely recommend getting some of those if you don't have nice, really sharp scissors. Then you can see there I was using the multi-purpose glue to glue the back of the two strips of pattern paper, and now I'm putting them on the Coastal Cabana, and there should be a nice 1/4 inch margin there around the sides and the top. Down at the bottom there's a wider margin of the Coastal Cabana, and I want that to be like that on purpose. So now I'm getting out some of the die cuts from the pattern paper that I pre-cut. You saw those holes in the one piece of pattern paper I showed you. And so I will show you later in the video how to use the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine to cut some stuff out. But for now, I just have it pre-done. And I'm just playing around with the design, trying to decide which pieces that I want to use. I decided to go with a little bird. But as I'm looking at this, it seems like maybe there could be a little more of the Coastal Cabana green on the bird. And so I got out my Stampin' Blends. And I believe that I used the Bermuda Bay Stampin' Blends and not the Coastal Cabana because I actually don't have Coastal Cabana blends. That's because I'm a newer demonstrator, so I just have not collected them all yet. I'm going to try to just put a few swipes on the bird. And what's cool is that you can use any color marker or stamping blend marker to change pattern paper so that it will bring in more colors of what your project is if it doesn't already naturally have those colors. I'm trying not to draw a solid line to outline the whole bird. I'm just doing a few swipes here and there to help it go along with kind of the watercolor effect that it already has. So remember that for other projects you're doing. So there you can see what I did to make it look a little different than the original bird on the right. It's not that different. I've decided to get out the ribbon that goes with this By the Bay suite. And this is called Balmy Blue and White 1-inch variegated ribbon. And when I put it on the white, you can kind of see that the top half is white and the bottom half is a pale blue, which is balmy blue. And so now I'm just going to start experimenting. I've never used stamping blends on ribbon before, but I've heard you can do it, so I'm going to try it out. You need to make sure that you use a really light touch when you use the stamping blends. So I'm just barely touching it. It definitely kind of bleeds out because that's how it blends together. So I'm not exactly sure that I'm liking it like that, but I know you need to wait and kind of let it blend. So I'm just going to fill in a few places, and I'm trying to decide if maybe I should try a different color maybe. I'm just trying to kind of think about this for a minute. I'm putting it on top of the card to see what it looks like. Now I have another piece of ribbon that I didn't use the blend on, and you can totally see that it really doesn't show up as much when it's on top of the Coastal Cabana. So I'm going to go back to my Stampin' Blends, and I'm going to get the other shade of the Stampin' Blend, and I'm just going to go for it. While I'm doing that, the stamping blends come in a set of 2, and usually there's a dark shade and a light shade. So clearly you can see that right now I'm doing the dark shade and it is way darker. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what did I do? I just don't know if I like this at all. So I'm just kind of filling in a few places back with the light color. And then I remember that there is another stamping blend marker that you can use with all of them. And that is the Color Lifter stamping blend. So this is going to be kind of cool to see how this works. So this has a white cap on it, and you can see that the tip looks white, but it does not have any color. It's actually alcohol that is really getting the colors to blend even more and to even lighten them. And then you can see I kind of rub it off on the scratch paper, and you can barely see any of the green showing on it. But when you are done with it, it is good to just do that on a blank piece of paper and just to get off any color that might be on it. So what do you think when I put it on the Coastal Cabana background color now? I do think it does look better. I still kind of don't know about it. It does give it a crazy look, but it kind of looks a little oceany maybe. So I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. So I'm going to have to adhere it to the Coastal Cabana paper, and I'm going to use a little bit of the multi-purpose glue, just a little dab of it. I'm only doing it on the dark part because I don't know if it will show through on the light part. I decided it might be easier if I turn it around to line up the edge of the ribbon against the pattern paper. So I'm trying to be really careful. It's a little hard to see when I'm trying to film because I don't want my head to show, but it looks like it's on there. And then on the back, I'm going to add some more mono glue to glue the ribbon down. And I think it would be a good idea to add some more of that clear tape to it, just also to keep it down, especially now as I continue to work on my project while the glue dries. Although the glue dries really fast with this mono adhesive glue. I'm going to set that aside to dry for a minute. I'm going to try to clean up my area a little. I have found that it is really important to try to always be cleaning up as you are working on a project. You don't want to lose the little die cuts. You don't want to lose stamps or other embellishments. So I do recommend trying to keep everything organized. So now let's see what it looks like with the white base of the card and also with the bird on it. Hey, I kind of like it. It gives kind of a ground that the bird is standing on, and you know, it could be waves, it might not be waves, but I kind of like it. Now I do have another card that's very similar. This has the ribbon that I did not use the blend on, so I think I might try one like that as well. And also on that card, that is not layered as much, so the Coastal Cabana is the actual card base. For this one, it doesn't have a second layer on it. It just goes from the Coastal Cabana right to the pattern paper. So now I'm getting out some dies. I want to see what else I want to add to the card. Next, I got some Sahara sand cardstock, and I have some dies on there. I'm trying to decide how big a strip of paper I need. And so those dies are some like grass dies, and so that just helped me decide how wide to cut that. And now I'm going to use the Stampin' Cut and Emboss die cut machine to cut those. And so let me show you how that is done. The die cut machine comes with different plates, and what I really love about this Stampin' Up one is that the directions are right on the plates to tell you how to use the machine with a variety of different materials, whether you're doing die cut or you're embossing, using an embossing folder or 3D folder. It's really awesome. I have used other brands of die cut machines over the years, and I really, really like this one. So as you get the plates in the correct order, then I'm going to put the cardstock on, and then I'm going to put the die cut facing down, and then I have to put that number 3 plate on it. Again, there's 2 number 3 plates actually. And then I'm going to bring the machine over, and this is the big size, so it's kind of hard to see on the screen. But I will take the whole, all the pieces, all the plates together. They call it like a sandwich, and I'm going to set it in there. And then you can't see it, but I'm turning the wheel to help it go through and actually make the die cut. And then you can see the pieces when they're cut. So now I'm going to play around with the pieces and try them different ways on the cardstock to see what I like and how to place them with the bird. I wasn't quite sure how I wanted it, so I went to my mini catalog where you can see the stamp set and all the dies there, and the ribbon, and also there's some pearls and the paper. That's what comes in the suite. And anyway, I wanted to look at the samples and see how they use the grasses. So now I'm going to take the bird and the grass and turn him over, and I'm going to use some dimensionals, I believe, because I'm going to have them stick out when I put it on the card. But it looks like I'm using a little tape again. Boy, I usually don't use that much tape when I stamp, but for these projects tonight, probably because I'm a little nervous being videoed for one of the first times, but I'm just trying to be really careful. But it probably is a good technique to kind of use some tape to keep things together. So now I'm using Stampin' Dimensionals to put on the back of the bird and the grass. And I'm using the Take Your Pick tool, which I think is amazing. I wish I had that many years ago when I used to stamp. That's been only a new thing that I've gotten. It makes it so much easier to pick up little tiny objects such as the Stampin' Dimensionals. And there you can see I'm really cutting them even smaller because the little legs of the bird and also the thin blades of grass can't handle just a normal size dimensional. And I also want to say that on the right are the mini dimensionals, and on the left of me, the left of the bird, is the larger dimensionals, or normal size dimensionals, which is like two-sided foam tape that will end up giving the bird a raised look on the card. Okay, you can see that I fast forward a little bit. You can see how I have the little tiny strips of the dimensionals, the very edge of the dimensionals, what I used. Now I need to take off those little strips off the little pieces, and actually I usually keep a coffee cup around that's totally empty. I only use it for my little pieces of trash, and that just keeps my work area neater. I'm going to fast forward a little bit through picking all this off because this took a little bit of time. Okay, so now I'm ready to put it on my card. And right away I can tell that it kind of looks like it's part of the tail of the bird or something. So I'm going to add a little more grass. So I'm going to cut another die cut with the two grasses. I'm just trying to arrange them so I don't waste as much paper. And if you notice, the top one there is going to not be completely cut. That little right side is on where the paper was already cut. But to me, grasses are very organic. They don't have to be a certain way. And so that did not bother me that that won't cut through all the way. This one piece of cardstock didn't want to come out. So what's the nifty thing is that you flip it over and there's a little tiny hole that you can poke with your Take a Pick tool or a pin, and it will come right out. Now I want to use the mono-adhesive glue again on the grass, but this time I'm going to be putting the glue on the cardstock, which is actually on a silicone mat. And that works really well because if the glue gets off the cardstock, it won't end up sticking to the background paper. And it's really easy to clean it off there. Also, I'm using the Take a Pick tool just to hold down the cardstock as I add on little tiny bits of glue. And that also keeps the glue from getting on my fingers. It's hard to see, but now I'm taking the pointy end out of my Take a Pick and I'm flipping it around, and now you'll see a little tiny spatula. And I'm doing that because I realized I have a Stampin' Dimensional right on the edge of the bird's tail, and I need to pull that up because I want to put this piece of grass in underneath there. And that spatula just helps really nice to lift things up without tearing the paper. So now I'm going to use some reverse tweezers to pick up this little tiny piece of grass, to flip it around and put it in place underneath that bird's tail. And this reverse tweezer is Stampin' Up, but it is, from 10 years ago. I've just had it forever. It came in a toolkit a long time ago. Now I'm deciding where to put that other piece of grass over on the right side. But I'm still not sure where I want to put it because I haven't done the sentiment yet, so I'm not going to glue that down yet. So first I get out my Seaside Bay stamp set, and I do like one of the sentiments on there that is Heartfelt Sympathy. So I'm going to get that out, but I realized that, I haven't put this stamp set together yet, and it is made of the cling stamps, which is like the red rubber. So let me show you right now how to assemble that kind of stamp. There's the Heartfelt Sympathy sticker that we want, and with this kind of sticker, there's going to be a backing on both sides of it. So look carefully and find the side where the backing is actually cut in half. And here you can see how I'm going to try to use the spatula tool to separate where those two halves are. And then I just fold back part of it. Don't take the whole piece off. And then I switched the spatula over to the pokey tool because I decided that was better. So now I'm going to take the other half and I'm going to fold that back as well. Then you're going to peel the sticker off with the image, but leave those two backing pieces on. And I've frozen it so you can see. Then you're going to take a clear block and you are going to put the image, the sticky side of the image, face down on a clear block. Any block will do as long as it's bigger than the sticker. I'm setting that aside for a second because now I'm going to pull out the red rubber piece. So you're going to pull that off, and then you're going to take off those pieces off the sticker. And it's hard to see, but I'm just lining it up. And so then you're going to pull the backing paper off of the rubber. So now that is sticky. And then this is where the part is a little tricky. So put the rubber side down on your table, and then you need to take the sticky side on the clear block and you need to turn that over, so then the sticky side is going to be touching on that gray side of the rubber stamp. And then you're just going to line up the outline of the sticker with the outline of the rubber, and then you're going to be done. And you can just, when you peel it off the clear block, make sure the sticker sticks to the rubber and it doesn't stick to your clear block. Now I'm just taking the stamp and putting it on a smaller clear block that will be easier to actually stamp with. Now I'm going to do a practice stamping on scratch paper just to make sure it's going to be a nice smooth print. With the ink pad, you're going to take the end with the groove and you're going to pull that up and around, and then you're going to slide it in. And if you want to lock it in place, you can. And then you're going to take the stamp and you're just going to ink it up just by doing some light pats. You don't have to rub or hit it really hard. Then you're going to press down and lift straight up. And I'm just practicing a few times to make sure it's looking okay. And it looks okay. And now I'm getting out an old Stampin' Scrub from 10 years ago or more to clean my stamp. And if you notice there, I wrote clean, pointing to the left. That's the part that is wet. And then the right side I have dry, and that's where I wipe it off to dry it. But you can use a wet wipe, or they have a cleaning tool that you can use that is currently in the catalog. Okay, now I'm going to take the rubber stamp off, make sure the sticker comes with it, and I'm just going to stick it on the inside of the case, and I'm not going to put the rest of these stamps together right now, so I'm just going to set it in there and set it aside for now. Now I'm getting a frame die from Scalloped Contours die set, and I'm going to put that around this stamp. And it also comes with a coordinating stamp set as well, and there's a bunch of frames there that are very versatile and is a must-have. So I have that there, but I did end up making a mistake because you'll see after I cut this out, that one corner has some of the other Coastal Cabana on the edge, which I did not notice because you can't see through the metal, but when it comes out, you'll notice it in just a second. That time I did the die cutting off screen, but now I'm done with that and I'm taking it apart. Some of the little white paper stayed in the die, and so I'm using the pokey tool to poke those little tiny pieces of paper out. And you want to make sure you do that because if it builds up, it'll get clogged up. And so just takes a second with the pokey tool to just poke all those little tiny dots of paper out, and you can see them falling into the little coffee cup there. That's for my little pieces of trash. So now I'm going to get my sentiment piece, and if you're closely looking, you can see that there is some green up in a couple of the corners that I did not notice. And also the stamp is just slightly crooked. So I'm going to try to make that less noticeable by getting out my blender tool and getting out the ink, and I'm going to add some color around the edges. Then for a little more color, I'm softly rubbing it actually on different parts of the paper besides just around the edges. And then at one point, I think I get a little dark spot. And so to make that look a little better, I make a couple more little darker spots so it looks like it was intentional. So now I'm going to put the ink pad away, and I'm going to play around with where I want to put the sentiment on the card. I'm going to put the grass back behind it. During this part, like I did before, I haven't put glue or anything sticky underneath my pieces, so I can put them in different places on the card and just kind of think about how I want it to look. Maybe I'll go with that. But then I get out my other card and try to decide if I want to make it the same as the other one or different. And which way do I want it to go? Do I want it to be landscape like the other one, or do I want to have it vertical? I get the die cut crab out, but I don't really like the color of it with the Sahara sand of the background. So now I've switched back to be like the other one, using the bird and going with a landscape look. And then I hit the jackpot. I decided to turn the sentiment a little bit sideways. And I think, oh, I could have the bird holding it in its beak. So I used the snips off screen to cut a slice in the beak, and now I'm just opening it. And you need to make sure that when you put the sentiment in there that the top part of the beak is on top. That looks better than having the bottom part of the beak on top. So that the bottom part you want to put to the back side of the sentiment. So now I'm going to skip where I'm putting the dimensionals on the back side of the bird and jump ahead to putting it together. So now I need to adhere everything to the cards to finish them up. But I'm still comparing them and trying to figure out how I want to put it on. But there I am placing the bird holding the sentiment in his mouth. So I might be done with this card, but I still need to work on the other one. And I think I'm still considering whether I want to add a crab to it, but I just don't like the shade. So I'm going to place the grass down there, but I still need to make an additional sentiment like the last one. So I'm going to fast forward through this since you've watched me do this before. However, this time I will make sure to stamp the sentiment on a piece of white paper and make sure that the frame will go around it without hitting a stray mark of the coastal cabana that I used already on that piece of paper. Also, I want to make sure that I get the frame lined up perfectly when I put it through the cut and emboss machine. So you'll see that I took a little piece of washi tape to put over it so it would stay in place. So I set both cards back out so I could compare. And ultimately, this is what I did with the second card. I will spare you all the time it took me to decide what to do. But I basically kept it the same. I really like the idea of having the bird hold the sentiment in its beak. And then I'm just going to put that piece of grass back behind it. I'm going to get out my silicone mat and use the mono-adhesive glue. And again, I'm trying to be really careful putting it on there, but that's why there's a silicone mat that will collect any extra glue. And I'm going to use that take your pick tool to hold it down. And then I'm going to use that reverse tweezer to pick it up and put the grass in place. Now I'm getting out the adhesive backed pearls, and we're going to use this little embellishment to just add a last little pizzazz to the cards. I'm going to use the take your pick tool. Again, I just use this all the time. I love it. And I'm going to get it to pick up the pearls to stick it on the card. And trying to decide where to put it. You know, really you can put them in random places. A lot of times I'll do a grouping of 3 that kind of makes an unequal triangle on the page. Sometimes I only use 2. So that one I went with 2, and I never did adhere the coastal cabana and the card on top of the white thick cardstock base. I tried to not spread the glue on too thick, especially in the corners, because I don't want it to spread out. And now I'm going to put that card onto the card base. Another reason why I like the mono-adhesive glue is that if you don't get it on perfectly centered, you can scooch it a little bit to get it right the way you want it. I know sometimes with the seal adhesive that is more difficult, but not impossible. It's just your personal preference, and it might change depending on what project you're doing. So now I'm going to add those pearls onto the other card where I hadn't already put them. And here I'm finishing up putting the third pearl on. For this card on the right, I decided to do 3 pearls, and on the other one, I decided to do 2, probably because that one had more grass. And so here is what I thought was going to be the finished product. However, once I put that aside and started cleaning everything up, I also put the rest of the stamp set together. And once I had that little crab stamp done, I decided I wanted to just mess around and stamp a little bit with it. But when I stamped it with the Sahara sand, it ended up being pretty light. I really didn't like it. And so I thought, you know, even though this is not a 2-step stamp, what if I were to just go ahead and stamp over the top of it with the Coastal Cabana? Only I wanted to offset it just a little bit. So hopefully those crabbies look like they have a lighter colored shadow behind them. Hopefully it doesn't look like they have extra legs. So just a second ago I was showing you the bottom side of the die, and then you turn it over and line it up on top of the crab. So the cutting part is facing down against the cardstock. And then I'll go ahead and put that through the die cut machine. After, again, I put a little washi tape on it to keep it from getting twisted and not line up correctly on the crab once it goes through the embossing machine. So I think those turned out pretty cute. And now I'm deciding whether I want to put one of those on one of the cards. I decided I liked it down in that corner. However, that pearl is kind of in the way. So what I'm going to have to do is remove that and reposition it. So I was going to remove it with the take your pick tool, the pokey point, but I flipped it around to the spatula part because that will take it off way easier. And so I'm going to take that off. It really looks okay there. It's just a little teeny tiny mark, but I'm going to put the crab over it so no one will know. So I'm just going to move that pearl over slightly, and then I'm going to adhere the crab on. And there you have it, the final version of that card. And here they are both together, so you can kind of compare. They are very similar but different. Thank you for watching till the end. Please subscribe.